All right, let me show you how we can optimize our images using the image component in Next.js. So we're looking at the homepage and I've deleted all the code from before. So we start from a blank canvas. So in Next.js, we have this image component that is defined in the next/image package. This component is built on top of the standard image element in HTML. But under the hood, it automatically compresses and resizes our images based on the device size. So in Next.js applications, we should always prefer to use this component as opposed to the standard image element in HTML. Now, to use this, we have to set a couple of props. The first one is source. We can set this to a file that we statically import on the top, and this is useful for images that are local to our application, images that we ship with our application, like logos, backgrounds, and so on. As an example, I've prepared an image here. To show it, we have to add it to the public folder because this is where we add public or static assets of our application. So here we add a new folder called images. Now let's drag and drop this and add it right here. Beautiful. Now back to our page. On the top, we import this image just like how we import a TypeScript or JavaScript module. So import, we give it a name, from. Now using an @ sign, we go to the root of our application. Then we go to the public folder, next images, and grab our image. Now we set source to coffee. Note that I'm not passing a string here. I'm passing an object, okay? And we should also set alt to something that describes this image, coffee. Here's what we get, beautiful. Now let me show you something really cool. So let's open up DevTools and go to the network tab. Then let's filter by image. This is the image that we have served. Now look at the type of this image, WebP. In case you're not familiar with WebP, it's a modern format that is now widely supported in all major browsers and is far smaller than JPEG images. Now currently we cannot see the size here because this image is cached. So I'm going to select disable cache and refresh. Now look at the size of this image. It's 100 kilobytes. But the original image that I have, the JPEG one, is 1.4 megabytes. So this is great compression and all of this is happening automatically under the hood. Let's look at this request. This request is sent to this endpoint on the line next/image. So Next.js automatically exposes this image for serving optimized images, okay? So this is how we can show local images. But quite often, our images are outside of our application. They are stored somewhere in the cloud. We call them remote images. I'm going to show the cover of my React course. So instead of an object, here we pass a string and type a URL like https bit.ly/React cover. Now for this to work, we have to register this domain in our next configuration file. So we search for next image. On this page, the documentation of the image component. We search for remote patterns. Here's the link. Look, this is how we should register valid domains in our next configuration file. So I'm going to grab this piece of code, copy. Now let's go to our next configuration file and add it here. So under images and remote patterns, we add one or more domains where we're allowed to serve images. This is for security reason because otherwise anyone can take advantage of the endpoint that Next.js exposes for serving optimized images. So here we have a few properties, protocol, which is HTTPS, hostname, I'm going to change it to bit.ly. We don't have a port here, so I'm going to delete this. Similarly, we don't have a path name. Just remember that for security reasons, we should be as specific as possible here. Okay? Now that we have changed this configuration file, we have to restart our web server. All right, back to the code. Now, with remote images, we should always provide a dimension because Next.js doesn't know their size ahead of time. With local images, the images that we import on the top, Next.js automatically detects their size, so we didn't have to specify a width and a height here. So for this remote image, I'm going to provide a width and a height. let's set the width to 300 and height to 170. These are arbitrary values, okay? So here's what we get, beautiful. Now, this is useful when we want our images to have a fixed size. So they should always render at the same size on all device sizes. Now, if you want to make our images responsive so they look great on all device sizes, then instead of width and height, we should set fill. Fill is a Boolean, so we can set it to true or false, but this is unnecessary, so we can just pass the prop name, okay? Now, let's take a look. Here's what we get. Now, if you pay close attention, you can tell that the image has lost its aspect ratio. It looks a little bit squashed. To solve this problem, here we have two options. One option is to set style to an object, and in this object, we set object fit to cover. With this, the image stretches and gets cropped so it fits properly within this container. The other option is to set object fit to contain, and this will resize the image so it fits within the container. Let me show you the difference. So right now, the image is resized to keep its aspect ratio. There is no cropping, but as a result, we have some white space here. So most of the time, we want to use cover, okay? So this is how we can set the style, but using inline styles is ugly. So a better approach is to use Tailwind. So instead of style, we set class name to object-cover. We also have object-contain. With that, we get the same result as before, and we don't have an inline style. Now, when showing responsive images using the fill prop, we often need to set sizes as well. And this determines how much of the width of the viewport the image is going to take. For example, if we want to render a background image, we always want the image to take 100% of the width of the viewport. So here we set sizes to 100 VW. So on all device sizes, the image is going to take 100% of the width of the viewport. So if you look at this page on various screen sizes, look, we get the same result. Now, as another example, let's imagine that we want to render a page like Instagram. So on mobile, we want to have a single column. On tablets, we want to have 2 columns. And on desktops, we want to have 3 columns. So here we set sizes to a special string that looks like a media query in CSS. So in parentheses, we type a condition, max width of 768 pixels. This is a standard breakpoint for tablets. So here we say on tablets, the width should be 100 VW. Then we add a comma and provide a second condition, max width of 1200 pixels. That is for mobile devices. We set the width to 50 VW. And for other devices, meaning larger screens, we set the width to 33 VW. So each image takes a third of the viewport. Hey guys, while reviewing this video, I realized I made a mistake. So 768 is the standard breakpoint for tablets. Now on mobile devices, we want to have a single column. So here we should set max width to 480 because that is the standard breakpoint for mobile devices. Now on tablets, we want to have 2 columns. So we should set max width to 768. That is the standard breakpoint for tablets. I'm sorry about the confusion. Now let's watch the rest of this video. Now, just remember, this is only for Next.js to properly optimize our images. It's not going to impact what we see on the screen. So on desktop, we'll still see the image taking the entire container because currently I have a single column here. But if we add a grid with 3 columns, each image will take a third of the screen. So the sizes prop doesn't impact the size of the image on the screen. It's only for Next.js to know how it should serve different images for different devices. Now here we have other properties that we can optionally set. Next one is quality, which is a number between 1 to 100. The default value is 75, which works perfectly for most cases. But sometimes, let's say for background images, you may want to have higher quality, then you can set it to 100. Now we also have priority, which is a Boolean, and this is for images that should appear above the fold, because by default, this image component uses lazy loading, so our images are only retrieved when they are visible in the viewport. So if you have other images below this, they're not downloaded unless we see them, okay? But if you have images that should be visible right from the get-go, then we should set priority here. Now, here in the console, we get a warning saying image with source has fill and parent element with invalid position. Provided static should be one of absolute, fixed, or relative. So when we use the fill prop, the parent element should have a position of relative or absolute or fixed. The main element by default has a position of static. That is why we get that warning. To fix this issue, we set class name to relative or absolute or fixed. I'm going to set it to relative. Now we get a different warning saying image with source has fill and a height value of 0. This is likely because the parent element of the image has not been styled to have a set height. So if you look in the browser, our image has disappeared because now it has a height of 0. To fix this, we should provide a height to the parent element. We can set height to h-screen, and that means 100% of the height of the viewport. So now the image takes the entire page. This is good for backgrounds, but if you want to put this in a card, then we need to allocate a certain height for the images in our cards.